Welcome to True Wellness. Today we're going to spend some time talking about one of the big basics in regards to our health. And it's one of the things that we kind of skim over because there's an assumption on our part that people are already aware of what we're going to talk about today. And it's been brought to my attention that we need to focus in on it again for folks. And so what we're going to talk about is water and the importance of water. Now, I see everybody walking around with water bottles. Everybody's carrying water and apparently drinking water all day. Well, there's a couple of things about that. The first thing we want to look at is what kind of water are we drinking? Are we taking that water bottle and filling it up at the sink before we leave the house? Are we drinking tap water all day? Because if we're drinking tap water from a municipality, then we're getting all kinds of chemical exposures from that water. They put chemicals in it to make it safe in regards to bacteria and viruses, but those chemicals are also a bit of a problem for our bodies. As well as the fact that there are somewhere between, we're going to say thousands of chemicals. I was taught there's about 7,000 chemicals in typical municipal tap water, and they're trace chemicals. But the issue is that they all gather together, and there's thousands of them, and we don't really know how that affects the body. But what we do know is this, that most, if not all, municipal water has chlorine in it, and the chlorine is put there to kill bacteria primarily. Chlorine is absolutely a drying agent. It dehydrates the body. It's actually a very good substance for killing living organisms, right? If you want to kill bacteria, chlorine's pretty good at it. Well, we're living organisms, and we have a lot, thousands and thousands and millions of bacteria, good and bad, in our digestive tract that needs to be there. And if we start drinking chlorinated water, that starts to play with that balance in our digestive tract. If we shower in chlorinated water, the average shower is about 15 minutes. Most people take pretty hot showers. And so that chlorine turns into a chlorine gas much faster than the water turns to water vapor. So if you get a steamy shower going, you also have chlorine gas in that shower. And that'll make you feel tired. And it's also absorbed through the skin as well as your lungs. So we want to avoid that as best as we can. The easiest way to do that is through filtering the water that's coming into the home, or filtering the water that's actually coming out of your shower. And I'm not going to get into different types of water filtration, but the most important thing about that is the amount of time that the water spends being in contact with the media. So if we have, for instance, if you have a tiny little Brita on your spigot at home, you need to think about how much media, how much surface volume there is for that water to go across to actually pull chemicals and other toxins out of the water. Well, it's pretty small, and the water doesn't pass through that for very long. And really what you want is a filter that sits on your counter that's pretty big, or a whole home unit that's real big that goes into your basement. And that really does filter out a vast majority of the toxic load because the water spends so much time inside the media that it's using as a filter. So that's important in regards to looking at filters, folks. Don't waste your time on tiny little filters that hook up to your spigot because really they end up being worse than if you're not using anything at all. So the quality of our water is very important. We want pure water. We want spring water. We want well water. Well water is very good as long as we know that the well has been tested and that you're not dealing with any microbes or bacteria or viruses or chemicals in that water. Oftentimes with well water, the best thing we can do is use a UV light filter that kills all the living things that might be in there. There's also all kinds of filtered water on the market. Everything from simple filtered water that Nestle puts out, all the way up to waters that are extremely pure, that are reverse osmosis. A lot of places use reverse osmosis. There's good and bad about that as well. The most important thing that we're really talking about is to become aware of the quality of water. Personally, I feel that spring water, as long as we know the quality of that spring water, as long as we know that that well is safe, I personally think that's the best water. Right up out of the ground, 90 feet down, we're pretty safe. Okay, and I know that in our area here in Pennsylvania, there's a lot of well water. There's also a lot of farms. So we want to be careful that those wells aren't contaminated with fertilizer and other things that were used on farms. But ultimately, spring water, well water, very good filtered water is probably the best for us. Our body uses water for virtually every function in our system. If we are suffering from constipation, you are dehydrated, because your bowel needs a fair amount of water to move that stool through the system. So constipation is a sign of dehydration. If our skin gets dry, that's often a sign of dehydration. I have a lot of people that say to me, oh, I get out of the shower and then I put my lotion on. And I say, well, why are you putting lotion on after you get out of the shower? Well, my skin's very dry after I get out of the shower. The only reason your skin is dry after you get out of a shower is that you're being exposed to chlorine. Chlorine's a drying agent. I mean, think about it. Spend 15 minutes in water and you get out and your skin is dry. It should be moisturized, right? Our skin will absorb the water. That's how we get some of the chemicals through it. But the bottom line is, I mean, if we think about it, if I get out of the shower and my skin feels dry, there's something wrong. So most likely it's chlorine if that's happening to you. So if you filter your water in relationship to your shower, you'll find that you don't really need the lotions and the potions that make your skin nice and smooth. You'll also find that the shampoos that you use are very different in water that doesn't have chlorine in it. So all of these things can be a very important factor in regards to the quality of water that we expose ourselves to every day. Let's talk about drinking water for a minute. I know we spent some time on the shower situation, and that's important because on some level, when you drink the water, you're filtering the water. Your kidneys filter the water, right? And so your system's actually dealing with some of the toxins that the water has. So oftentimes we say to folks, look, you can either be a filter or you can buy a filter. I'd rather see you buy a filter and not be the filter for the water. Water is very important. I said earlier there's a little formula for how much water should we drink a day. There's a lot of folks out there that are actually drinking too much water, and it's draining minerals and vitamins and other essential amino acids out of their system. They're also watering down the digestive juices by drinking too much water. So there's a place where you can have too much water and it's not of a benefit. There's also, of course, a place of having too little water, and that's not of a benefit. Bottom line is this. If we're relatively, unfortunately, inactive, if we have desk jobs, cubicle jobs, if we're not spending a lot of time in big physical activity, take your body weight, cut that in half, and that's how many ounces you should drink a day. So, you know, if I'm 150 pounds, then I'm looking at about 75 ounces of water a day. And if I up my activity level and start to sweat and breathe heavy, because breathing heavy will absolutely help dehydrate the body. We lose a lot of water vapor from our breath. So if I'm working real hard, or if I'm breathing real hard in exercise, or if I'm talking all day long, or if we're even using our brains a lot, we're going to need to up that water a little bit. But we don't want to drink too much water. Our urine should have a color to it. And it should have a slight smell to it. If you're peeing clear water, you're drinking too much water. The planet is 70% water. Our bodies are 70% water. And one of the things that I think we start to neglect as we move through our healthcare and get concerned about other things like heavy metal detox and old bacteria and virus infections that we've had and all those other things that make a big impact on our health, we tend to forget about the simple things that we can do, like drinking good quality water and drinking an appropriate amount of that water. So throughout the summer, of course, I want you to think about drinking water. Water is the only thing that the body recognizes as hydration. Everything else, it feels like it needs to digest. So if I'm having coffee in the morning, I'm putting a little cream in my coffee and some sugar in my coffee, the body's actually seeing that as a food, not a liquid. It's not absorbing it like it does water. Our cells need water and minerals. And that's all. That's what they really need, right? And so we need to constantly give the body that which it needs. And one of the primary nutrients is water. Okay? Everybody is concerned about eating appropriately every day and eating, what kind of foods are we eating, and can I avoid the toxins in foods and the GMOs? Really important. We also need to think about the water that we're drinking. Is it good quality water? Am I giving myself enough water every day? And make sure that I'm not drinking too much water. And so, much like the planet, we need to make sure that we have enough water, that water is pure, because it's a big part of the detoxification pathway for the body, is having enough water to help the cells release toxins and go through their process of detoxification and respiration and everything else. So as we go into these nice warm summer months, think about drinking your water. and know that anything else that we're drinking typically adds to our dehydration. Anything with caffeine in it, all your sodas, even your fruit juices. The fruit juices especially are an issue in regards to what that does to our gut and what that does to us later in the day. Fruit juice is really okay early in the morning. Grapefruit juice is absolutely the very best. Everything else starts to actually become an issue, and especially as we get later in the day, you want to avoid those fruits and fruit juices later in the day. Water is the thing that the body really needs. We get more energy by drinking an 8-ounce glass of water than you do by getting a cup of coffee in the morning. And I know that sounds funny, but if you do it for a while, you'll really see that your energy comes up because you're giving the body water. The most important time of the day is giving yourself water first thing in the morning. It's literally the first thing that should go in our mouths in the morning is good, clean water, because that's going to start our metabolism. That's going to help with the dehydration that we went through all night long while we were sleeping. We dehydrate quite a bit. It'll help us with our energy. And it'll really help the metabolism and help the digestive system to start to really function appropriately. Give it enough water so you can have good, easy bowel movements in the water in the day, in the morning. And so water should be a part of our lives, and realize that it is a part of our lives. And without water as a part of our lives, we don't live very long at all, and we certainly don't live good quality lives. So I hope that this little conversation helped and got you thinking about, hey, am I drinking good water, or am I actually causing more of a toxic load on my system because I'm exposed to water with chemicals in it, whether or not that's man-made or not. We want to make sure that our water is good quality water. So thanks for stopping in, and we'll see you real soon.